When you think about the biggest names in history, there are a few that just echo through time. And maybe the loudest of them all is Alexander the Great. We're going to take a look at how one guy, in just over a decade, didn't just conquer the known world, he completely redrew the map for good.
So this is the face that launched an empire. Get this, he became king at 20 and he was dead by 32. So how on earth did this young man, from what was basically the edge of the Greek world, achieve more in a decade than most empires do in centuries? That's the big question we're digging into.
It's just hard to wrap your head around the sheer scale of it. By the time he was 30, he'd built one of the largest empires in all of ancient history, stretching all the way from Greece to India. And maybe the most incredible part? In all those years of non-stop war, he was never, ever defeated in a major battle.
So to really understand the conqueror, you've got to understand the kid. His journey to greatness didn't kick off on some battlefield. Nope. It started back home in the Macedonian court, with two of the most powerful influences you could possibly imagine.
Just think about this for a second. On one hand, you have his father, King Philip II, an absolutely brilliant and ruthless military commander who'd already conquered all of Greece. And on the other hand, his personal tutor was Aristotle. Yeah, the Aristotle, probably the greatest mind of his generation. So Alexander's basically learning military strategy at the dinner table and philosophy from a master. It's this incredible fusion of might and mind, all poured into one young man. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly captures that fire that was already burning inside him. The story goes that Philip said this after young Alexander managed to tame this wild stallion, Bucephalus, a horse nobody else could even get near. Bucephalus would end up carrying him all the way to India. But even back then, as a boy, his own father could see that the kingdom of Macedon was never going to be big enough to hold his ambition.
But here's the thing. Alexander wasn't just going to inherit this kingdom peacefully. His rise to power was every bit as fast and as violent as his conquests would be.
So in 336 BC, right in the middle of a huge public celebration, Philip II is assassinated by his own bodyguard. Just like that, the entire kingdom is thrown into chaos, and a 20-year-old Alexander is suddenly on a very, very shaky throne.
He didn't waste a second. Any potential rivals for the throne, including his own cousin, were executed swiftly. And when some Greek city-states like Thebes thought Philip's death was their chance to rebel, Alexander marched his army south and burned the city to the ground. The message was brutal, and it was crystal clear. The son was even more terrifying than the father. With Greece now firmly under his thumb, Alexander turned to his father's biggest dream, the invasion of the incredible Persian Empire, the undisputed superpower of the ancient world.
Okay, so this was the size of his army when he crossed into Asia in 334 BC. It was a massive, massive gamble against an empire that could summon armies many times larger than his. In this legendary move, he actually threw his spear from his ship into the soil of Asia, claiming it as a gift from the gods. He was all in.
And his campaign just took off like a wildfire. After a huge first victory at the Granicus River, he just swept down the coast of Asia Minor. His strategy was genius. If you capture all the coastal cities, you cut off the powerful Persian navy from all of its own ports. Then, in the city of Gordium, he comes across this legendary challenge, the Gordian knot. It's this super intricate knot with a prophecy that said whoever could untie it would become the king of Asia. So what was Alexander's solution? He just pulled out his sword and sliced it in half. It's the perfect symbol of his whole approach, direct, unstoppable, and he didn't play by the rules. The real turning point came at the Battle of Issus. He was badly outnumbered, facing the main Persian army led by King Darius III himself. But using better tactics and a ridiculously bold cavalry charge, Alexander smashed the Persian lines and went straight for Darius. The Persian king actually fled for his life, even leaving his own family behind. The Persian Empire was officially on the run. But just defeating Darius, that wasn't enough. Not for Alexander. He didn't just want to rule Persia. He wanted to go all the way to the very ends of the known world. So he marches south into Egypt. And he doesn't enter as a conqueror, but as a liberator who freed them from Persian rule. The Egyptians actually hailed him as a pharaoh. Even more amazing, the famous oracle of Siwa declared him the son of the god Amun, basically confirming his divine status. And it was right there, at the mouth of the Nile, that he founded the first and the greatest of his many cities, Alexandria. After that, the end for Persia came fast.
At the Battle of Gaugamela, Alexander absolutely crushed Darius's forces for the last time. He seized the legendary treasures of Babylon and Susa, and then he burned the grand palace of Persepolis to the ground. The hunt for Darius finally ended when the Persian king was assassinated by one of his own governors. Alexander was now, without a doubt, the king of Asia.
But even then, he didn't stop. Can you believe it? He just kept pushing east, across the brutal deserts and mountains of what's now Afghanistan, and all the way into India. He kept founding more cities named Alexandria, relentlessly chasing the edge of the world. He only turned back when his own loyal, completely exhausted troops finally refused to go one step further.
So Alexander returns to Babylon, the new capital of his insane empire. But the man who seemed totally invincible was about to meet his end, and not in battle, but in his own bed.
In 323 BC, Alexander the Great died of a sudden fever in Babylon. He left behind the biggest empire the world had ever seen, and no clear heir. The result? Total chaos, as his top generals, the Diadochi, immediately started fighting each other for the pieces of his kingdom.
But his real legacy was so much more than just the land he conquered. His campaigns kicked off what we now call the Hellenistic Age, a whole new era where Greek language, culture, and ideas spread and mixed with the cultures of the East. The cities he built became these incredible centers of learning and trade. And he himself, he became the ultimate benchmark for ambition, the ghost that would haunt every great general who came after him, from Julius Caesar all the way to Napoleon. So in the end, we're left with this really complex person. Was he a brilliant visionary who connected the East and the West? Or was he a ruthless warlord who destroyed cities and slaughtered thousands? He completely remade the world in just 13 years, leaving a legacy that is just as brilliant and just as debated today as it was more than 2,000 years ago.